All right, let's dive right into this explainer and decode Chapter 15 of the Constitution. We're going to find out who really holds powerful leaders accountable here in Kenya. You know, we hear a lot of talk about politics and politicians, but today, we're focusing on the unsung heroes of our democracy. The guardrails, the watchdogs, the referees.
It's a really serious question, right? Think about it for a second. If someone at the very top, someone with just immense influence and authority, suddenly decides to overstep their bounds, who exactly steps in? Or what if an election result is hotly disputed and the entire nation is just holding its breath? Who is actually supposed to step up and ensure fairness?
And bringing it right down to our everyday lives. If a government office completely fails you, or if you suspect corruption in a big public project, who do you turn to? Listen, a country absolutely cannot rely on good leaders alone. People change, and power, well, power can be incredibly tempting. A nation desperately needs strong, unshakable institutions to step in and protect citizens when that human element fails.
So, Part 1. Who watches the powerful? Let's introduce Chapter 15.
Moving on to Part 2, the referees of government, blowing the whistle on power.
To really get how these institutions work, you kind of have to think of them as the referees of government. I mean, picture a high-stakes football match. You would never, ever expect the players on the pitch to enforce the rules themselves, right? No way. You need an independent official out there to blow the whistle. And that is exactly what these constitutional bodies do for the country. Now, looking at these three constitutional goals, notice what's missing? They don't serve the politicians, they serve the Constitution, and they serve you.
Ultimately, whether they're investigating a citizen's complaint about unfair treatment, digging deep into corruption allegations, or just monitoring how the government conducts its daily business, their entire purpose boils down to one simple, undeniable truth. They exist to make absolutely sure power is not abused. They are quite literally the shield between the ordinary Kenyan and the immense power of the state.
Section 3. Commissions versus independent offices. Basically, the watchdog teams and the solos.
So here's the basic structural difference between the two. It's actually pretty straightforward. On the one side, we have commissions. These are essentially teams. The Constitution dictates that each commission has to consist of at least 3, but not more than 9 members. And on the other side, we have independent offices. These are your solo acts, single office holders who bear the ultimate, final responsibility for their specific constitutional mandate.
Now, you've probably heard of some of these on the news, right? The Constitution actually outlines 10 of these watchdog teams. We've got the IEBC, which oversees our elections. We have the Human Rights and Equality Commission, protecting our rights. There's the Public Service Commission, ensuring fair recruitment, the Judicial Service Commission, the National Police Service Commission. The list goes on. But together, they cast a really wide net of oversight over the government. And then, on the flip side, we have our 2 independent offices, the Auditor-General and the Controller of Budget. These are our solo financial watchdogs. They exist for one main reason, to keep an absolute eagle eye on public funds. Before the government spends your tax money and long after they've spent it, these 2 offices are right there checking the math to ensure your money isn't being wasted or, worse, stolen.
Part 4. Hiring and firing watchdogs and how we prevent political capture.
Okay, here is the multi-million shilling question. How do we actually make sure politicians don't just, hire their friends to be the referees? Because if the people in power control who gets the watchdog jobs, the whole system just completely collapses. So check out this 3-step pipeline. Step 1. They must be identified and recommended through a strictly legal, transparent process. Step 2. They have to be vetted and approved by the National Assembly. And only then at Step 3 can the president officially appoint them. Absolutely no single person has the power to just handpick a watchdog.
6. This is essentially a magic number in Chapter 15. And honestly, this is a real game changer. Something that genuinely surprised me when I first dug into this. Commissioners and independent office holders serve a single term of exactly 6 years, and they are not eligible for reappointment. No exceptions. By strictly limiting them to one single term, the Constitution completely removes the temptation for a watchdog to suck up to politicians just to secure a second round. They come in, they do their 6 years, and they leave. Boom!
So the crucial takeaway here is that once they're in, a politician can't just fire them because they're being investigated. The Constitution lists very, very strict grounds for removal. They can only be fired for a serious violation of the Constitution, gross misconduct, physical or mental incapacity, incompetence, or bankruptcy. Meaning they absolutely cannot be removed just for doing their jobs and making politicians sweat a little.
And even if someone does accuse a watchdog of one of those serious violations, the actual firing process is incredibly rigorous. It kicks off with a citizen petition to the National Assembly. If the Assembly actually finds merit in it, the president suspends the official, but then must form an independent tribunal led by a judge. This tribunal investigates everything expeditiously and makes a legally binding decision. This whole process ensures ultimate fairness and totally protects the watchdogs from politically motivated witch hunts.
Section 5. Why true independence matters. It's really the backbone of a fair society.
The Constitution actually spells this out perfectly in Article 249. It explicitly states that these commissions and independent offices are subject only to this Constitution and the law. They are independent and not subject to direction or control by any person or authority. I want you to really think about the weight of that word, only. They answer to absolutely nobody except the law itself. Not a cabinet secretary, not a member of parliament, literally not even the president.
To really put that into perspective, let's jump back to our football match analogy. Imagine if the referee was wearing an earpiece and the coach of one of the teams is secretly giving them instructions on exactly when to blow the whistle. Would that match be fair? Of course not. There's no way. It would be absolute chaos. Well, the exact same principle applies to governance. If oversight institutions take orders from the very government they're supposed to be watching, accountability is just completely dead.
But here's the thing. True independence isn't just about the rules, it's heavily about the money. The framers of the Constitution were smart. They knew that if politicians couldn't fire a watchdog, they might try to starve them out instead. So the Constitution offers brilliant financial protections. Parliament is required to allocate adequate funds directly. The salaries and benefits of commissioners cannot be reduced to their disadvantage while they're in office. And on top of that, they have legal immunity for anything done in good faith. You can't bankrupt them, and you can't sue them just for doing their duty.
Which brings us to our final section, strong institutions, better governance, and the real-life impact of all this.
So why does any of this actually matter to a student, or a recent grad looking for a job, or someone trying to hustle and start a small biashara? It matters because strong oversight has a tangible, real-life impact on your everyday world. When the Auditor-General protects public funds, it literally means more money for schools and hospitals instead of lining corrupt pockets. When the Public Service Commission promotes fair recruitment, it means you actually get a fair shot at a government job based on your merit, not just who you know. When these institutions work, they defend human rights and they build the trust we need in our elections. They are quite literally the machinery of a functioning democracy. Now, we definitely have to acknowledge the reality here. These institutions, they aren't perfect. They face immense political pressure, frequent funding challenges, even with those constitutional protections, and sometimes they deal with deep public mistrust when justice just seems way too slow. But here's the hard truth. When these institutions stumble, or when their independence gets compromised, corruption and the abuse of power become significantly easier. That is exactly why fiercely protecting their independent status is vital for every single one of us.
We've seen exactly how the Constitution tries to guard the guardians. But now I really want to turn this over to you. Looking at the landscape of our country today, what do you think matters more for our future? Do we just need strong, visionary leaders? Or do we desperately need strong, unbreakable institutions that hold everyone to the exact same standard? Let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts down in the comments and keep an eye out for our next explainer as we continue to decode the rules that run our nation.